The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days. It fell heavy and cold over the dead battlefield, soaking broken armor, cracked shields, and the corpses left to rot in the mud. Spears jutted from the ground like grave markers. Banners lay trampled and half-buried, their colors faded to gray by blood and rain. The war was over, but the stench lingered, iron and smoke and something sour, the smell of flesh gone wrong. Kaelen moved slowly through the wreckage. His boots sank into muck with every step, his cloak weighed down by rain. He was no soldier now, not really, just another ghost wandering the ruins of a war that had eaten his life and spat out the husk. His sword arm still ached from old battles, and the scars across his ribs never stopped burning when the weather turned cold. But even broken men had to eat. That was why he was here, scavenging among the dead. He searched bodies for anything of value, coins, daggers, dried rations that hadn't spoiled. Most of the armor was useless, bent and battered beyond repair. Still, scavenging was better than starving. Yet something tugged at him. It wasn't sound. Not exactly. It was more like a pulse, a pull that drew him forward. Past collapsed siege engines and burned out wagons, down into a shallow crater where the ground still steamed from whatever had torn it open. There, half buried in mud, was a sword. The hilt was wrought of black steel, carved with veins of silver that shimmered faintly even in the gloom. The blade itself, it wasn't right. It didn't shine like normal steel. It seemed to drink the light, drawing it inward until only shadow remained. The earth around it was scorched black, as if the weapon itself had seared the ground. Kaelen stopped at the edge of the crater. Every instinct screamed at him to leave it alone. He had seen cursed relics before, blades that whispered, shields that burned their bearers from within, amulets that promised glory and delivered only ruin. Power always came with a price, and the price was always more than a man could pay. But the pull grew stronger. Take me. The whisper wasn't sound. It was in his chest, his skull, threading into his bones. His throat went dry. He shook his head, muttering, "No." His voice cracked in the rain. He turned away, forcing his legs to carry him, but he stopped. His hand twitched. His breath quickened. And slowly, against every bit of sense he had left, Kaelen walked back into the crater. He knelt. His fingers reached for the hilt. The moment his skin brushed the black steel, fire ripped through him. His knees buckled. His vision went white, then black, then filled with images that weren't his own. Cities crumbled into dust. Oceans boiled and vanished into steam. The sky split open, and something vast and winged rose from the darkness. A blade gleamed at the center of it all, the same blade he now touched, cutting through gods and monsters alike, leaving nothing but silence. Kaelen gasped, wrenching the sword free from the earth. It slid out with a soundless weight, heavier than it should have been, yet balanced as if made for his hand alone. Lightning split the sky above him, thunder rolling so loud it shook his bones. The whisper became a voice now, smooth, velvet, sharp as glass. "You are mine, and I am yours. Together we will carve a path through the void." Kaelen dropped the sword. It fell into the mud with no sound at all, as though the earth itself feared to touch it. He stumbled back, chest heaving. He should leave it, bury it, run. He should forget he ever saw it, but his hand betrayed him. Trembling, desperate, it reached down again. His fingers curled around the hilt. The weight settled into him like a truth he had always known. The rain eased, then stopped altogether. The battlefield grew quiet. Kaelen stood alone in the crater, the black blade in his grip, and knew his life had ended the moment he touched it. Something far greater, and far darker, had just begun. The morning after Kaelen unearthed the blade, the battlefield looked different. The rain had stopped at last, leaving the land sodden and reeking of rot. Mist hung low over the corpses, softening the outlines of shattered armor and broken weapons, making the dead look like they were still moving in the corner of his vision. Kaelen hadn't slept. He sat near a fire of damp wood, cloak pulled tight around his shoulders, the black blade resting across his knees. He tried not to look at it, but his eyes betrayed him. Its surface swallowed the firelight, devouring it until nothing remained. He whispered into the mist. "Why me?" The voice came at once. "Because you touched me. Because you are strong enough to carry me. Because no one else would dare." Kaelen clenched his jaw. He told himself he wasn't listening, that he didn't care. He had found cursed relics before and left them where they lay. He should do the same now, but his hand wouldn't let go of the hilt. He had tried hours ago. He had thrown it into the mud, forced himself to walk away. 10 steps later he was gasping, his vision blurring, his chest screaming like his heart had been ripped out. He had staggered back, falling to his knees, clutching the blade again just to breathe. He was bound. The wind shifted, carrying sound across the plain. Hooves, distant, but closing fast. Kaelen rose, sliding the blade into the scabbard he had taken from a corpse. It didn't fit properly. The blade seemed too long, too broad, but somehow the leather stretched, reshaped, as though it had always been meant for it. Another curse, another reminder. He moved up the slope, scanning through the mist. Shapes emerged. Riders, 6 of them, armored in steel, dented from battle, their horses as ragged as their gear. Survivors, scavengers like him, but armed and hungry. They saw him. The lead rider, a scarred man with a wolf's tooth hanging from his neck, pointed. "You drop the pack. Leave it and go." Kaelen kept his ground. He could take 2, maybe 3 in a fight, but not 6. Not with his body still aching from yesterday. He swallowed, lifting his hands slowly. "I've got nothing worth—" The wolf-toothed man's eyes caught the hilt of the blade. His voice changed, rough with greed. "The sword. Hand it over." Kaelen's stomach twisted. He opened his mouth, but the voice in his head spoke first. "Kill them." His pulse thundered. "No," he whispered. But the riders advanced, circling him, blades drawn. The wolf-toothed man grinned. "Last chance, stranger." Kaelen's hand moved without permission. He drew the blade. The world seemed to flinch. The mist recoiled, shadows deepening as the sword left its scabbard. The riders faltered, their horses snorting in fear, and then one lunged. Kaelen swung. The blade cut not flesh, but something deeper. The man screamed, not in pain of the body, but of the soul. His eyes went wide, his voice breaking as his very shadow was ripped from him, torn free and devoured by the blade. He collapsed dead, his body untouched, but hollow, empty. The others froze. Kaelen staggered back, horror in his chest. He hadn't meant to do that. He hadn't even felt the sword bite. It had drunk the man's essence like wine. The voice purred. "The first cut. Do you feel it? His strength is yours now." Kaelen gasped as warmth surged through his veins. The ache in his muscles vanished. His scars stopped burning. His vision sharpened until he could count the raindrops sliding down his enemy's blades. The power thrilled and terrified him. The wolf-toothed man snarled. "Demon weapon!" He charged. Kaelen tried to stop himself. He begged his body not to move, but the blade guided his arm, swinging with perfect speed, perfect precision. Another rider fell, then another. Each time their shadows were ripped away, sucked screaming into the void of the sword. Their bodies collapsed like husks, lifeless before they hit the ground. By the time Kaelen realized what was happening, it was over. 5 corpses lay in the mud. Only the wolf-toothed man remained, backing away, terror flooding his face. You're cursed," the man spat. He wheeled his horse and fled into the mist, not daring to look back. Kaelen dropped the blade. His hands shook violently, bile rising in his throat. He fell to his knees, clutching his chest, gasping. Around him, the bodies of the fallen stared with empty eyes, their faces twisted in silent horror. He whispered, "Gods forgive me." The voice was gentle now, almost tender. "You live because of me. You are stronger because of me. This world will eat you alive without me. Do not mourn them." They were nothing. Kaelen covered his ears, but it was inside him. Always inside. He wanted to throw the sword into the sea, bury it beneath mountains, burn it in fire. But he knew. He knew if he let go, it would tear him apart. He was bound. The mist parted as the sun broke weakly through the clouds. For a moment, Kaelen saw himself reflected in the black blade's surface. Not just his face, but something deeper. A darkness coiled inside him, curling tighter every time he held it. He whispered, "What are you?" The voice only laughed. Kaelen did not return to the villages. He knew what would happen if he did. Word traveled fast in the borderlands, faster than hunger or plague. If anyone learned what his sword had done to those riders, how it had swallowed their shadows and left their bodies hollow, they would not call him a man. They would call him cursed, and curses did not last long among the living. So he walked alone. Days bled together, forests thinned into barren plains. He hunted rabbits when he could, gnawed on roots when he couldn't. The black blade never left his side, It should have grown heavy by now. It should have dragged at his arm, bent his spine. But it didn't. It felt lighter the longer he carried it, as if the sword was molding itself to him. Sometimes he caught himself gripping it even in his sleep, his fingers locked so tightly around the hilt they ached in the morning. At night, the dreams came. He saw walls of flame swallowing kingdoms. He saw oceans emptied into an endless abyss. He saw a void beyond the stars, darker than any night sky, and from it eyes stared back at him, eyes too vast to belong to anything mortal. Always at the center of the dream he stood with the blade in hand, the world burning around him. And always, the voice. The world is already dying. They squabble over ashes, fight for scraps, cling to thrones built on bone. Only I can cut through the rot. Only you can wield me. Kaelen told himself he would resist, that he would bury the blade, destroy it if he could. But every morning he woke with it clutched in his hands, and every morning it whispered that he was chosen. He was not the only one who noticed. In the ruined town of Dryholt, Kaelen came across the first signs. The gates hung splintered, blackened by fire. Houses stood gutted, their roofs caved in, walls scorched. The stink of death lingered, though the corpses were gone. He walked in silence, boots crunching on broken glass. The air felt wrong, like the battlefield had, thick and heavy, full of unseen eyes. At the town square he found the mark, a circle burned into the stone, wide as a wagon wheel, carved deep with symbols he did not recognize. They twisted if he looked too long, like snakes writhing under his gaze. The black blade vibrated at his side. He touched the hilt and a shiver ran through him. "They are waking," the voice murmured. "The seals are breaking one by one. And when they are gone, the void will come." Kaelen staggered back. "What are you talking about?" But the voice only chuckled. That night, as he camped in the ruins, he heard footsteps. He sprang up, blade in hand, before the figure even entered the firelight. She was a woman, hooded, her cloak ragged from travel. Her eyes gleamed sharp as knives in the glow. She did not flinch at the sight of his sword. Instead, she studied him like she had expected to find him here. "You carry it," she said softly. Kaelen's grip tightened. "Carry what?" "The blade, the void-forged steel." She stepped closer, lowering her hood. Her hair was black as crow's feathers, her face pale with exhaustion. But her voice was steady. "I am Serenia of the Covenant. We've hunted the blade for generations, and now I see it has found you." Kaelen's stomach twisted. "If you've come to take it, you'll have to kill me." "I couldn't, even if I tried." "No one can. The blade chooses." She crouched across the fire from him, her eyes locked on the sword. "But listen to me. Every wielder before you has been devoured. Their souls burned out, their names erased. The blade feeds on its bearer as much as its enemies. If you don't master it, it will master you." Kaelen laughed bitterly. "You think I haven't noticed?" She leaned forward, her expression hard. "Then you know the truth. Darkness is stirring. Old things are waking, called by the sword's power. You're not just a man with a cursed blade anymore. You're a beacon." As if to prove her words, the night around them shifted. The fire guttered. The air grew colder. From the shadows beyond the ruined houses, shapes emerged. At first, Kaelen thought they were wolves. Then he saw their eyes. Dozens of them, glowing white in the dark. Their bodies were wrong, stretched and twisted, fur hanging in clumps, jaws split wider than nature intended. They moved in silence, circling, their paws leaving no prints in the dirt. Serenia drew two short blades, silver flashing in the firelight. "The void spawn," she hissed. "They've tracked the sword." Kaelen rose, his breath quick. The creatures closed in, teeth glinting. His muscles screamed at him to fight, but his heart pounded with dread. He knew what would happen if he drew the black blade again. He knew what it would take from him. The first creature lunged. Serenia met it midair, slashing its throat, silver cutting deep. The beast shrieked. Not like any animal Kaelen had ever heard, a sound that rattled the bones. More followed, swarming from every side. Kaelen hesitated. His old iron blade lay by his bedroll, chipped and dull, but safer. He grabbed it, swinging clumsily, cutting one of the beasts across the snout. It didn't fall. It only grew angrier. Another beast lunged, teeth sinking into his arm. He screamed, punching it away. Blood ran hot down his wrist. More shadows gathered, faster than Serenia could cut them down. The voice whispered, "Draw me." "No," Kaelen snarled, forcing the iron blade into another beast. His arms were heavy. His vision blurred. Draw me, or you will die here, and so will she." Serenia cried out, one of the creatures slamming her into the dirt. Kaelen saw her blade scatter. She struggled under its jaws, teeth snapping inches from her throat. His hand moved. He ripped the black blade free. The world froze. The beasts hesitated, whimpering as the darkness of the sword spilled into the square. Kaelen swung once. Shadows ripped like cloth. 3 of the void spawn collapsed at once, their essence swallowed whole. He didn't stop. He couldn't. The blade carried him through the swarm, each swing effortless, perfect, each strike tearing not just flesh but soul. The beasts shrieked, scattering, but none escaped. Their shadows bled into the sword, one after another, until the last of them collapsed in silence. Kaelen stood panting in the ruins, the blade humming in his grip, shadows writhing along its length. His body pulsed with borrowed strength, his wounds already knitting closed. The hunger of the sword sang in his veins. Serenia rose slowly, her eyes wide with fear. "Not of the void spawn, of him, you see now," she whispered. "Every time you use it, the void gathers. You've made yourself a beacon." Kaelen stared at the corpses, at their hollow husks, then at the blade in his hand. His stomach churned, but his hand would not let go. And in the silence that followed, far beyond the ruined town, something answered. A horn call, low and endless, rolled across the night. Not made by men, not meant for ears, but Kaelen heard it all the same. The void had noticed him, and it was coming. The days after the attack on Dryholt blurred together. Kaelen and Serenia traveled north, keeping off the roads, hiding from patrols and watchtowers. The further they went, the more Kaelen realized the void spawn weren't isolated. Villages were burned, their people scattered. Old stones carved with twisting marks appeared at crossroads. Whispers followed them, of nightmares walking in daylight, of a cursed sword that had returned. The cursed sword. His sword. Serenia kept her distance at first, speaking only when necessary. She eyed the blade constantly, her face unreadable. But she stayed, even when she could have slipped away. At night, as they camped in ruined barns or caves, she told him more. The blade was ancient, she said. Older than kingdoms, older even than the gods who ruled the temples. Forged in a time when the void bled into the world, it was both weapon and key. It could kill anything, man, beast, god, but every cut drew the void closer. "Every wielder falls," she said one night, her voice low over the crackling fire. "They grow drunk on its power. They lose themselves piece by piece until the blade swallows them whole. That's the price. That's always been the price." Kaelen stared at the sword across his knees. "Then why hasn't it taken me already?" Serenia's eyes met his. "Because it wants you to believe you're different. That you can master it. That's how it gets you." He had no answer. Because part of him already believed her, and part of him already knew she was right. The true test came in the city of Keldros. It was one of the last strongholds still standing. Its walls tall, its gates iron-banded. But the moment Kaelen stepped inside with Serenia, he felt the unease. The streets were crowded, not with markets or music, but with refugees. Thin faces, hollow eyes. Soldiers patrolled with hands on their blades, tense as bowstrings, and whispers followed them here too. They hadn't made it to the inn before a soldier spotted the sword on Kaelen's back. He barked orders, and within minutes Kaelen and Serenia were surrounded, spears pointed at their throats. "Lay down the weapon," the captain demanded. "You carry the black blade, it is forbidden," Serenia hissed. "If you know what it is, then you know no man can take it from him," the captain sneered. "Then he'll give it up willingly, or die here." Kaelen's chest tightened. He could fight. He knew what would happen if he drew the sword. These men would die, their shadows swallowed, their lives stolen. But if he didn't? The voice stirred. "One cut, and they are nothing. One cut, and you live." Kaelen's hand twitched. His heart thundered. He was about to draw when Serenia stepped forward. "Wait," she said. "He is not your enemy. The void spawn gather. You've seen the signs. If you kill him, you kill your only chance of surviving what's coming." The captain hesitated. Murmurs rippled through the soldiers. Fear, not trust, but hesitation all the same. At last the captain spat. "Lock them in the citadel. Let the council decide." They were dragged through the streets, bound and shoved into stone cells deep beneath the keep. Hours passed. Kaelen sat in the dark, the blade across his knees, whispering. You are a fool to let them bind you. One cut, and you would be free. One cut, and none could stand against you. He pressed his palms over his ears. Shut up. But the voice did not stop. When the door creaked open, Kaelen expected guards. Instead, it was a boy, barely 15, skinny, eyes too big for his face. He carried no torch, yet somehow the shadows clung to him, shifting unnaturally. He smiled. You've carried it well. Kaelen's breath caught. What are you? The boy tilted his head. A servant, a herald. The void comes, and you are its chosen hand. The seals weaken. Soon the gates will open. All you must do is keep cutting, Serenia cursed, lunging forward. Get away from him! The boy's smile widened. You still cling to hope? Pathetic. His eyes glowed white for an instant. The torches in the hall guttered out. Kaelen felt the void press against him, heavy and endless. The blade thrummed in his hands. The boy's voice slid into his skull. With me, Kaelen. With me, you will carve through gods. No more running. No more fear. Only power. Kaelen's heart pounded. Part of him wanted to strike the boy down, silence that voice. Part of him wanted to listen. Serenia shouted, dragging him back. Don't! Kaelen clenched his teeth, forcing the blade down. The boy only laughed, fading back into the shadows like smoke. His whisper lingered. Soon, the next day the council summoned them. Old men and women in robes of authority sat behind a long table, their faces grim. They demanded Kaelen surrender the blade. Serenia argued, begged, swore they needed him, that destroying him would only hasten the void's rise. But Kaelen barely heard them. The sword pulsed in his hands, alive, hungry. And then the alarms rang, horns blared. Shouts echoed from the walls. The council chamber shook as if the earth itself roared. A guard stumbled in, face pale. The void spawn! He screamed. They're here! The council erupted in panic. Soldiers rushed to the walls. Kaelen felt it before he saw it, the hunger of the void pressing closer. The creatures had come for him. Serenia grabbed his arm. This is it. If you use the blade, you'll save them. But every soul you take brings the void closer. Every cut is the price. Kaelen's chest tightened. He could hear the screams outside already, the sound of claws against stone, of men dying. His hand tightened on the sword. He had a choice, to resist and watch the city burn, or to give in and become what the void wanted him to be. The price of power was before him, and Kaelen knew one way or another he would pay it. The walls of Keldros shook like they were made of clay. The air trembled with roars not born of any natural throat. Smoke rose beyond the battlements, black against the night sky. Kaelen could hear the screams, men, women, children, as the void spawn poured in. He stood in the council chamber, the black blade in his grip, its weight almost feather-light now. It pulsed against his palm like a living thing, humming with hunger. The voice whispered, smooth and insistent. One swing, and the city is saved. One swing, and you are mine forever. Serenia grabbed his arm. Her eyes burned with desperation. Listen to me. If you draw on it now, you'll win. But it won't stop. You'll lose yourself. You'll feed it until there's nothing left of Kaelen, only the sword. The council elders cowered, some praying, some shouting for guards who would never come. None of them mattered, only the choice before him did. Another roar shook the chamber. Dust rained down. Kaelen closed his eyes. He saw fire. He saw the void. He saw himself standing at the end of the world with this blade in his hand, nothing left alive but the sword's hunger. And yet, he also saw the children he had passed in the streets, clutching their mothers. The soldiers who had stood their ground, even knowing they couldn't win. Serenia, who had stayed by his side when she should have abandoned him. He knew the price. But some prices were worth paying. Kaelen's voice was steady. Then I'll burn with it. He turned, striding through the doors and out onto the battlements. The night opened before him, a nightmare given flesh. The void spawn covered the ground outside the walls, countless shapes writhing, snarling, their glowing eyes filling the dark like stars. Some clambered up the stone with claws that scraped deep gouges into the rock. Others flew, things with tattered wings and twisted limbs, shrieking as they swooped over the city. The soldiers fought bravely, but they were drowning. Kaelen raised the blade. Its hum became a roar in his bones. The void spawn turned as one, as though they had felt him. 1,000 eyes locked on him, and he leapt. The black blade cut through the first of them like paper, its shadow ripped screaming from its body before the flesh even fell. Power surged into him, hot and sweet, stronger than blood, stronger than fire. He moved like lightning, every swing perfect, every strike absolute. He was a storm, a reaper, a god of the blade. The void spawn fell in droves. The sword drank them, one by one, each soul sucked into the void within its steel. Their corpses littered the streets, husks twisted and empty. Kaelen felt the blade's joy, if such a thing could be called joy, pouring into him, flooding him with strength, and yet with every cut, he felt himself slip. His breath came ragged. His vision blurred. The voice filled his skull, drowning out his own thoughts. Yes, yes, cut deeper, cut forever. There is nothing else. You are nothing else. He roared, trying to hold on to himself, but the tide was endless. For every beast he slew, another rose. For every scream he silenced, the void howled louder. His arms were tireless, his body indestructible, but his soul was unraveling. Then he saw Serenia. She stood on the wall, her silver blades flashing, holding back the monsters that slipped past him. Her eyes met his for a heartbeat. He saw the fear there, not of the void spawn, but of him. That was when he knew. He couldn't hold it. The blade wasn't just eating the enemy, it was eating him. Piece by piece, swing by swing. Soon there would be nothing left, and then the horizon split. The horn he had heard in his dreams bellowed across the world, shaking stone, shattering glass. The void itself tore open above the city, a wound in the sky. Black stars blazed through, and something vast stirred beyond, too immense for the mind to grasp. Wings like night unfolded, blotting out the moon. Eyes opened in the dark, endless and cold. The old one had come. The soldiers fell to their knees, some screaming, some silent. Serenia staggered back, clutching her chest. Kaelen alone still stood, the black blade thrumming with frenzy in his grip. Strike, the voice howled. Strike, and all is mine. Kaelen's body trembled. The blade wanted him to cut, to open the last gate, to free what should never be free. And for the first time, Kaelen smiled. No, he whispered. The blade shrieked inside his skull. Pain split him, ripping his mind apart. He staggered, every bone aflame. But he held on. He thought of the children, of the soldiers, of Serenia, of every nameless soul who had died because men like him thought only of themselves. For once, he chose differently. He turned the blade inward. The steel plunged into his own chest. Agony beyond fire tore through him. His vision went white. The blade screamed, thrashing, but Kaelen held it fast, forcing it deeper. His blood spilled black, hissing as it touched the stone. The void reeled. The horn faltered. The wound in the sky shuddered. The wings, the eyes, the endless hunger, all of it shrieked and recoiled, dragged back into the abyss. The void slammed shut, leaving only silence. Kaelen fell to his knees. His hand shook as the blade dissolved into smoke, its whisper fading at last. Serenia ran to him, catching him as he collapsed. His eyes were dim, his breath shallow. You did it, she whispered, tears streaking her face. Gods, you did it, Kaelen tried to smile. His voice was a rasp. Not gods, just a man. And then he was gone. The black blade was gone with him, its curse broken in the only way it could be, through sacrifice. The dawn came slowly, weak sunlight spilling over the ruined walls of Keldros. Survivors crawled from the wreckage. The void spawn were gone. The sky was whole again, and in the years to come, they would speak of Kaelen, the man who bore the black blade, who stood at the edge of the void and chose to fall so the world would not. Some would call him cursed. Some would call him blessed, but all would remember him as the man who paid the price. The blade and the void,